Good morning. Happy Friday.
How are
I'm
you?
good. Welcome to our Friday webinar. We're excited to be back. We took off last week and we're back again this week. And we've got what we're calling the 3 V's today to work through. So, Victoria, are you ready to kick this thing off this morning?
I'm ready. And if you guys were wondering, V does not stand for Victoria today.
Well, over the past, I think, 3 webinars we've really focused more on a consultative role, really less about how we're going to use the system, and more about how we're going to actually think through the overall process, what we're doing as people in the practice, and really getting our systems in check. So we're going to go through again that same kind of mindset today, and really think about the volume of your online booking and the choices that you have, and also look through our verticals and our variations. So we'll kick that off, and just for my media team, can you get the grids off my face, please, off the camera? I'd appreciate that. Then we'll go ahead and we'll get started. So 3 V's, here we come. All right, so if you think about where we are today, and as Victoria and I both look at a lot of systems, look at a lot of people's systems, we help them with feedback, with consultations. The things that we see, or at least I see most often, are there's just too many options. So if I look at some online booking, I've actually been doing some auditing of a couple groups. You see like 1,000 options. Their online booking is like, we talk about going below the fold. They're going, they've got 15 categories with 15 services in each category, and you multiply that out, and there's like 1,000 things to choose from. So it's just really robust. And I think patient confusion kind of happens at that paralysis analysis. I think another, and we'll talk about this at the end, is this outdated option. So things that you may have been doing 6 months ago that were a really big focus that maybe you don't do now, or you sold that device, you've got to take it off of your online booking, or you've had a promotion on there that you were running that now you're not running, and so they're booking for it, and then they come in like, wait a minute, this thing's on your booking, why don't you have it? And I think too, some vague descriptions. So we're going to walk through a little bit today as you think about services and verticals, really making the descriptions accurate to the service. I was with a customer a few weeks ago, and she said, I hate online booking, I'll never do it. And I'm like, tell me why, because all the statistics say you've got to be able to do this or you can't survive with millennials. She's like, because they always book for the wrong thing, always. And so my feedback was, well, if they're booking for the wrong thing, perhaps the description's not clear. You got to be very specific in what you're telling them that they're going to be getting, or they're going to book for the wrong thing if they call you too, right? They're going to tell you they want one thing and they need another thing. They think they want toxin, they need filler. So getting it wrong is just kind of the nature of the beast, but I think being more specific in the descriptions can be really helpful. And then redundancy. In our demo account, we are the worst at this. If you guys watch us do demos, we have like 15 different toxin appointments. They're all the same thing. And then lastly, being too specific. So, if we're looking at, like laser hair removal, chests, or, underarms, legs, etc., making it extremely specific when the patient doesn't know what to get and it's overly specific, then they choose to get nothing because nothing fits what they think they need, because they're now thinking about like a laser focus, just like the descriptions say. So I think there's a way to be both descriptive but not so specific that patients opt out because it doesn't fit their needs. But these are kind of the things that I see as I look through Victoria as well. So Victoria, what are some things that you notice as you're in people's online booking portals, and they get a little bit overdone?
Yeah, definitely. So I think that as we look at simplicity, in our webinars we talk about that quite a bit, is simplicity. So you don't want to, overwhelm the patient with so many options that they're just like, screw it, I don't know what to book, so I'm just not going to book anything at all. So we don't want that to ever be the case. So I think today we'll be able to provide a lot of just kind of tips and tricks to better set up your online booking or booking in general, using verticals, things like that. And I think too, then as you look at, the volume in your practice, you don't necessarily want your front desk picking up the phone every single time someone needs to book something. And so this is kind of like the cycle of life, if you have easy descriptions and everything is spelled out clearly on the front end of things when the patient's booking, that's going to decrease, call volume in your office. So I'm excited to jump in.
Yeah, and I think too, this is not even in here anywhere, but just as a general note, it kind of came to me as you were talking, is I was looking at a practice this morning, actually testing something, and they have no avatar for the practitioner and no description. And so if I'm the patient coming in trying to book with your practice, and I see people who have a nice picture, nice description, like 3 of those are all perfect, and then 2 have nothing, I'm just inherently as a human going to book the ones who have things listed, because we don't typically book for things that have no information. So I think the same idea about being descriptive with your services is also for the practitioner. So there's a nice way to like add a nice headshot, We have one practice that has these incredible avatars that like blink. I don't even know how they've done it, but they're these cute little like cartoon looking avatars. But I think really focusing on building a good description for, for the practitioner, what do they love to do, what's their specialty, could really make it easy for the patient to say, yep, I want to book them. Because you may start seeing in your trend analysis that the people who have no description and no picture are getting booked far less. And so it's throwing off your schedule balance or your like workload balance and doing that. So just a cheap tip method to get you going. So our question today is, how do we solve all this? How do we use variations and we use verticals to kind of reduce the volume of calls in the practice, but also decrease the volume of options? So again, no paralysis analysis for the patient. Or is it analysis paralysis? I always get that wrong. It's one of the two. I don't know, guys. Let us know. Okay, so Victoria, you are the category guru, so I'm going to let you flex your category muscle with this one for sure.
Yeah, definitely. So this is one of the things that we really focus on just, as we're doing consulting with clients as well as just onboarding for brand new customers, is setting up services to make sure that they make sense for the patients that are viewing these services. So we have a couple of options, but we typically recommend doing things by new versus existing. And the reason behind that is because you can actually associate different paperwork to those services. And not only that, let's say, you have a new patient coming in for a toxin treatment. That appointment's probably going to take longer than a current patient. So those are just some things to keep in mind. But when we think about organizing those categories inside of your aesthetic record account, separating it out by new versus current, and this is a hack that not many people know, but you can tie multiple categories to one service. So keep that in mind as we kind of work through the presentation today, but start to think about some of the services that you have, because you could have, new patients, current patients, and then Botox could actually fall under, multiple categories, for example, or, wrinkle relaxer treatment. The other thing as well, so if we want to look at doing it by treatment type, so we have a lot of clients that will also, put the word injectables as a category, or dermal filler, things like that. So one example that we can use when we're booking by treatment type is going to be, chin filler, for example. Keep in mind, you don't want to necessarily book by product name, because patients should not be choosing their products. That's a no-no. But you could book it by lip augmentation, things like that, or quite frequently we'll have dermal filler plus wrinkle relaxer treatment. So think about the things that you often pair together, and then actually just build your service type on those two things actually, paired into one. So there's kind of some feedback that we have in regards to setting up those particular categories.
And I think the thought here is you've got to figure out your schema. We work a lot with databases in our company. Obviously, we're a technology company, so we look at like database schema. You want to organize things by the patient phone number or the patient email. So you have to kind of make a choice and go with it. And once you've built your schema, then you have to really understand how the categories fit into that. So if you want to go with new versus existing, think about that schema. Like, what does that look like for the patient? At the end user level. It's almost like we call it design thinking, going from the end user in mind and working backward. If you want to use treatment combinations and things, treatment types, I think what Victoria said is so important. Don't put the name of the product in there. A patient doesn't know what Restylane is. I mean, many of them do, don't get me wrong. I know that patients are far more advanced today, especially after COVID and all the months of research. But that also takes away the ability for the provider to make the recommendation. So obviously the patient's not the medical expert, the provider is. So I'm very apprehensive to put in Restylane filler, Allergan filler. I think that that's a no-no, because again, it takes the medical onus off of the provider and gives it to the patient instead. I do think the one exception, and sorry, we're having a monsoon here in Dallas, the one exception would be Sculpture BBL. If you're a surgeon doing BBLs and the surgical BBL is an option, a consult for that, that's a much different procedure than a Sculptra or a Radiesse BBL. So I think in the case of a BBL, when there's a confusion for the patient with, is this a surgical or non-surgical, that's the one instance where I think it makes sense to maybe put the product name in there or put non-surgical BBL, something to differentiate the two. But I do think that if you look at the booking process for the patient on the AR end, like on our end, if I want Victoria to get both filler and toxin, and they're two separate appointment types, I have to go in and edit the time, change it up, because there's not a logic for that. So I think to your point, Victoria, if they're always doing toxin and filler together, make that one appointment type, one service for 45 minutes. Don't make it 30 minutes. You have to go in and change it on the back end and merge them together. And then you can send one set of paperwork to the patient, not two, just one, which I think is also really helpful. And don't forget on the new patient schema, your GFEs. So if you don't need a GFE, it doesn't matter, right? If they're an existing patient, GFEs are done, you're good to go. But for that new patient, they're going to have a GFE in many clinics. So don't forget that on that part of it, adding in a little bit of extra time to get that done. So there might be a different time, time schema, for example, on the new patient because of the additional GFE. So, and the GFEs, that's a whole, if you're watching this thinking about GFEs, we have a whole webinar on GFEs and standing orders, because we get asked this question every day, maybe more, a couple times a day. Go watch that webinar, because we did a whole thing on how to build the GFEs and standing orders using the health timeline and putting them in the document repository. So go watch that if you're like, GFEs, that's an issue for me in my clinic. So carrying on here, Victoria, I'll let you take this one as well. I'm like the peanut gallery today. You do it, I'll just give you some commentary.
Oh, look at us making a great team. So I think too, so as we look at really customizing that booking experience, categories and verticals, they're kind of like interchangeable, if you will. So it's kind of like if you want to use online booking without your verticals, do it the way that we just talked about. But as we think about verticals, this allows you to kind of customize and really drill down to specific services even a little bit further. So for example, as you think about building your verticals, if you wanted to do a members vertical, for example, you would put any of your particular member services, like let's say that maybe you offer a free monthly facial. You could build that into that particular section. It also, from a staff perspective as well, it also allows the staff to easily see and kind of double check that they are actually a member in that case. But as we think about other vertical types as well, so let's say that you are a practice that does functional medicine and aesthetics, for example. You could basically build your functional medicine vertical URL, and maybe you do or don't have two websites, but if you do have two websites, you could put that functional medicine URL for booking purposes only on that actual functional medicine website. So it really just segments out the different offerings that you have at your practice, especially if you do have different entities. We work with, I'll use one of our hair restoration clinics as an example. So they have aesthetics, they have hair restoration, and then they also have a couple of other little segmentations there. But that clinic actually uses verticals for booking purposes as well. So when they are booking hair restoration, the hair restoration patients don't need to see anything about aesthetics because, quite frankly, they just don't care about it right now. They're focused on, booking their hair transplant, for example. So I think as you really just think about drilling down to the particular items or separating out different entities in your business or different, service verticals, that's where you'll be able to really customize and dictate, those particular verticals. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think you can do, let's say they have the same website, it's on the same, I think that's where it's most important. If you're on the same website, we have a lot of allergy clinics. When I was a sales rep for Galderma, I had so many people who were in an allergy clinic and an aesthetics clinic, which was like very odd to me, but they were always paired together. And the folks coming in to get their allergy shots didn't care about Botox. Like, it wasn't the same patient base. Now, in some cases it would cross over, but this would have been a perfect fit for them. My allergy clinic booking and my aesthetic booking. And so if your aesthetic patients start here, allergy patients start here, and you could direct them out where they wanted to go. So I think as a practice breakdown and practice verticals, like true business verticals, it makes complete and total sense. And for the practitioner who's doing both, let's use the allergy clinic example. If I'm going to go do an allergy shot at 10 and Botox at 10:30, on my schedule it looks different. And I can tell on my schedule, visually speaking, that I've got a green vertical, allergies, at 10, and then I've got the purple vertical for aesthetics at 10:30. I know I've got to walk across the other treatment room and prepare for a whole different mindset. And then I got to come back in 10 minutes and start doing more allergy shots. And I got to go back and do filler. I can visually see the way that my day is flowing from a hair restoration into filler, back to hair restoration into vitamin injection, back to IVs. I can see my day flow based on the colors of the vertical. So it also helps to practice from a volume management to say, I know that today Victoria's doing 5 injectable appointments and 7 hair restoration appointments. Like I know what her schedule looks like, where she'll be like physically in the clinic all day long based on her verticals. So I think there's a lot of benefit there in the clinic managing your volume as well. But the other part on the website, that second bullet point there, is I see so many of you that you offer all these incredible services, and the book now link is always everywhere, right? So if I go to the cold sculpting page, it says book now, and I get the full booking. If I go to facial injectables and click book now, I get the full booking. If I go to estheticians and click it, I get the full booking. What if you could say on the cold sculpting page, I'm going to show you cold sculpting appointments and all the various modalities of cold sculpting, and over in estheticians, I'm going to show you facials and hydrofacials and dermaplaning and chemical peels. And then in injectables, I'm going to show you just my injectable list. So it also helps on your website. Those of you that want custom booking, we get requests a lot. If I want my own custom booking portal like Square, well, you can pay for that with Square happily if you want to, or for free, we can give you verticals. Just a side plug for that. But point being, you can take that same mindset and just shave down that one thing you want to focus on. So when I click book now on the facial model that you have on your site for Sculptra, I click on book now and I get just facial injectables. So it allows you to customize without having to actually customize the UI of the booking portal by giving them like a curated message of what they want to book for. And then there's no confusion about, is this the esthetician service or the facial injectable? Is this skin tightening, or is this like a chemical pill? It's much more clear. So now I've delineated it out by both functional type and service, and I have a really great description with an accurate time domain. The patient now knows what's going on. So it's almost like a flow or a highway. We're just their tour guide, right? Giving them the tour of their journey to get them where they want to be, which is obviously a booked appointment. So I digress. But the member thing, we're going to get to that in a second. I think what Victoria said is brilliant for the membership types. So if you're doing memberships and you don't have a vertical for members, this is going to be a revelation for you today of what you could be doing to make that free service per month an easy note on your schedule of like, that's a freebie. I got to sell that person on something else, or it's wasted time for my practitioner. It's a good visual cue if you do members only booking that I think will be really helpful for you too. Great point, Victoria. Bringing the heat this morning. Mm-hmm. All right, this is going to look really crazy on your screens, I'm sure. We have to go full screen for this, JT, to see this. I went there this morning in my chaos at 4 a.m. and built examples. So let's hope they make sense, because I don't sleep. You guys know that. But if you think about at the very top, this would be a schema by procedure type. So if your overarching booking link, an AR, that overall link that you would get has all this stuff. So again, you've got 5 categories by 6, 7, 8 procedures in each one. That's a lot of math. So instead of taking that one big booking link and putting it out, what if I could segment it out into 5 little micro links, or like micro columns, if you will, and be able to offer just, again, that curated list of things to the patient. So you see here, I did put consultations on the side because the whole GFE thing, right? We know consultations are a different animal, and many of you do like a full hour consultation, which I think is fantastic, and it allows you to sell long-term recurring revenue, patient retention for many, many months and years. So the consultation can be its own booking vertical, because you may have in the consultation, if it's for injectables or medical, you have to have the GFE. For estheticians, you don't. So you can make the consultation different types for different people, add in your GFE. And then from there, you also have your additional services. So by procedure type here, we have body contouring, so your cold sculpting or your Quo or your M-Sculpt, whatever it is, which I heard the new Neo is phenomenal. I haven't tried it yet. If you have, let me know if it works. You've got your facial injectables vertical, which is obviously, lots of things there around facial. Lasers and devices, because I think that's the other part too, is when you talk about lasers, my eyes glaze over because I'm so not in that world. I don't understand it as much as I should. And then obviously skincare. So this would be a great example of on your site. If you've got 5 different pages that you're showing up, you could have 5 different links that are specific to those services. And then the beauty of that is on the month of, let's say, July, if your big focus is on facial injectables because they're quick and easy and no one's doing laser in the summertime, you can promote on your Instagram or wherever you are, you can promote specifically that booking link. Like, this is a month of facial injectables. We're so excited about all of our new products. Wrestling Contours out. Everyone's so happy. Click here to book. And then when they click here to book, it is the facial injectable list. It's not lasers and dermaplaning and Sculpt Neo. It's facial injectables, which is your focus. Because again, I want to drive them as a tour guide. I want to drive the patient to where I want them to go on the journey, but I'm going to get them there. I'm going to deliver them to that place. So I'm going to focus on that area. This will be one schema by procedure type. So if your categories are already procedure type, this could make sense for you, because to Victoria's point, you can almost interchange category for a vertical It's just the fact that they won't see all of it. They'll just see that one vertical. And then Victoria, I'll let you take our patient type because you're the guru of patient types, and our members are on there as a list too. So take that one for us.
Yeah, definitely. So similar to how we were mentioning the particular categories kind of at the beginning. So you can do this with your booking as well. So let's say on your Instagram, if you have, we talk about Linktree a lot. So if you're using Linktree, for example, you could have a section for new patients. And under that would be associated the vertical that is just all of your brand new patient appointments. So once again, Tiphany, I love that analogy, the tour guide. So you are the tour guide, and so you want to direct those new patients to those new patient services. So the same goes for existing patients. If you are using Linktree, for example, you could have the existing patients tab. You associate that vertical URL there, and then that drives them to click directly in that section. Now, when we think about members, so this is something that we have started seeing a little bit more frequently. So we all know sometimes tracking things regarding a membership, especially if you offer a lot of free items, it can be a little hard for your team to track. And so this is just another way to kind of check the box to make sure that, if Sally Sue is booked for a free monthly membership facial, that allows the front desk team or whoever's managing to make sure that she is, number one, actually a member. If she's not a member, that allows the team to have some time to book her for the right thing ahead of time. And number two, it allows the provider, or kind of just reminds them that there's actually no charge for this service. Maybe they're using that free monthly facial from their wallet this time around. The other thing as well is if you have other discounts or specials regarding any of your injectables or body contouring, anything like that, and you just want your members to book through that particular URL 24/7, that's just another way, I think, to make them feel special when they walk in the door, that they're a member, they booked through that particular URL. And it really just drives the process in a really seamless fashion. So that's what I would kind of say about the members. Now, discount groups. Tiphany, do you have anything specific you want to go through on that?
I can take that one because I think, again, on the verticals, the part that I think is so helpful here for you on the practice side is that they're color coded. I can't stress that enough, that when the person books as a member, for instance, and it shows up, let's say, in this like coral color that we see here, and the practice sees that, a patient comes in, they know, hey, Victoria, our member, we're so happy that you're part of our club, our facial injectable club. Like, for one, it makes the patient feel very welcome because they're already identified as a member, at base level. And if they're not, we know that too, we can get that fixed. But also it helps to remind the practitioner in the room that, hey, this person gets a member's discount or a free service. And so I think the other part there is, if it's, again, a free service, we know if we don't trade up to something more in that appointment, we've lost, we've paid overhead on a patient and on a visit that doesn't give us any revenue. So I need to give them skincare or add on toxin or whatever that might be, because they're getting a free service. So I think the members part of it, again, it helps to really, it's almost like you've tagged them as a VIP in the practice. On the discount groups, now this is a thing that we hear a lot. People want to put a discount on, a certain, let's say a certain group of people. My gym, the gym, our patients get a discount with them, they get a discount with us, or they work at Lululemon, and I've worked out, I get 20% and they get 20, whatever that may be for you, the employees there. If there's a group that's always going to get a discount on something, like we know that this group is coming in via this discount, associated pool of people, I can give that group a specific booking link to say, if you want to get your discount, you have to book through this link. Okay, Lulu employees, if you want your 20% off, you must book through this link. Because if you don't, we're not going to know that you're part of this, this membership group or this discount group. Friends and family. I think if your practice does a friends and family discount, it's nice to see that this person's friends and family, because if I have to bump them off the schedule or change their time or make them wait or something because of a fully paid patient and they're part of friends and family, I'm okay to do that, right? Like, I feel like it's okay to say, Victoria, it's going to take me 15 more minutes. You're Sally's sister, the front desk girl. You're getting a big discount here. You can wait 10 minutes, it'll be fine. I've got to get this person getting a $5,000 sculpted BBL in the door first. I think it's also a good help for the practice looking at the schedule to say, these folks are getting a discount at base level. They're not VIP discounts. They're just like discount groups. Can I move and change them around? But I want them to book through that link, because then I can, again, track who's coming in on that vertical on a given day to know where to associate my resources. So I think the discount groups, if you're going to do a big, a big thing for a particular group of people and not call it membership, then having them use a certain link for it also helps you to make the service type be called that thing, and then your inventory variation can reflect the pricing discount that that group receives. And we'll go into that in a minute. So this would tie directly into the inventory variation for charting and what the invoice will say at checkout to reflect the fact that this was a Lulu employee who gets 20% off of their services. So it'll all come full circle in the end for tracking purposes. So I think the other part of that too, going into promotions and discounts, if we look at the same kind of mentality here, I think we have to go back to full screen, but if you have your everyday booking, which is new and existing on Linktree, right? I've got my new patients and existing patients in Linktree. I may also have July promotions, which are just for this month. I know many of you do this monthly promotion thing where it changes every 30 days, which I think is fantastic. But that's where keeping it up to date is so critically important for the practice, that on June 30th, this comes down and July goes up. And then on July 30th, it comes down and August goes up. But you can take your entire promotional balance of July and make those services be called that thing, whatever, Christmas in July, filler promo, whatever the promo is. You could make those into an appointment as a service and put them into a July promotions vertical, and then use that promotional vertical wherever you're talking about the campaign or the promotions for the month. So if I'm going to talk about our great deals in July, I don't want them to buy a thing that's not on promotion possibly, because I want to get rid of my inventory. I'm going to have toxin go bad. If I don't get rid of it, I'm going to have a big spoilage concern. I have to write off on my, on my taxes for like lost goods. So I want to get them booked into this thing in July. So perhaps I make that July promotions vertical what I use everywhere until I get that booked up, and I no longer have to worry about the toxin going bad. And then I can go back to my regular, new, existing, whole shebang. But it allows you to put into this one little booking tree, or one little booking link, all the promotion stuff. So that's one way to do it. And then on the other part, we have a lot of you who do training in your practices. You're trainers. You're constantly having people coming in and shadowing you, and you give, let's say you give a discount to patients because they're part of like a shadowing program, right? So I've got a person with me in the room. I'm going to take longer to do it. I'm going to probably beat them up a little bit more because the cannula is staying in their face a little bit longer because I'm talking about where to go with, with it and all that kind of stuff. So I might be giving like a model discount, like a training discount for patients, or it's a new service. Let's say it's M-Sculpt Neo. I'm obsessed with that today, and it's like my first time to ever use it. I'm going to give the patient a discount because I don't know what I'm doing yet, right? So I want to get the patient in as like my trial, my trial by fire, if you will. If you're doing a Galderma training in your practice and you have models coming in, or you have a brand new practitioner who's 3 weeks into this and she's not going to be as fast or as good as you are, and you want to give a discount to the patients to get them in to get her some some cases to actually learn and grow, you could have a whole vertical for just this training and model call. So if you do like a model call on Instagram, we need models for this Thursday at 5 o'clock for filler and toxin, link in bio. That link is just for the model booking, and it's first come first serve, right? When it's booked, it's booked. You can actually go through, obviously, make sure it's the right patients or whomever. Or if you have a model call and you say, send us your headshot, we make sure the right patient, and Victoria's like, yep, she's the right patient. You could send her back that link. Okay, go ahead and book yourself for this event. So there's a way to make it where it's very concise. They're not booking on your schedule. They're just booking for the modeled sessions that you have for that practitioner on that day from 3 to 5. So those of you who want to like segment out your schedule, like I want to just do this service on this day and this thing on this day, I can make those services such that, I'm only going to be giving them to people who are going to be coming for that event on that day. So just a thought there. And if you're doing clinical research as well, or any kind of research, and you want to keep those patients separate, again, with a color denoted to say, this is a patient who's in my QUO study, or in my toxin, I'm doing an IIT for Galderma around Dysport with, something else. I want to have my study participants denoted specifically. I know that they're a study participant. I could make that vertical for just my study patients. So when they come in to get their pictures, their checkup, their 6-week progress or 12-week progress, I know that Victoria comes in with QUO study written on her face. Like I know what she's here to do. And she doesn't get mixed in thinking she's a paid patient on my schedule like everybody else is. I know that she's a 15-minute pure loss for me because she's a patient in my study, but I got to have her come in or else I can't, get the IIT done or the study done. So I think it's a really good way to segment your schedule so that you know what's happening where, no matter what it is that you're doing. And again, those little links can help, get that organized for you. I can go on this all day. I just get on a soapbox, Victoria. You gotta take me off the ledge. Take me off the ledge.
I love it. I love it.
Last one.
Well,
This is you.
I can take this one.
Take it, sister.
This is me. Okay. So this is actually, Tiphany came up with this idea, and this is actually it's so simple, but it's so great because oftentimes we hear, from practices that, maybe the doctor does a toxin treatment in 15 minutes or 10 minutes because they've been doing it for 20 years and they are just rapid fast. Um, and let's say that you have maybe a newer provider that potentially maybe they take 30 minutes for a toxin treatment because they're just starting off. So number one, think about building your services. The doctor that does this treatment is at 15 minutes, and then the provider that does the treatment that takes a little bit longer is at 30 minutes. Now, when you think about building those two separate services, you have different time durations associated, but you can actually then link them back to your vertical link. So to this point, if we had one for Emily, Dr. Jones, Sally, and Dr. Frank, any services that we want to basically funnel through that particular provider, we could put under their vertical. But I think it's really great too when you think about the different durations for things. That's something we do get asked quite a bit, is just how to denote different durations and then direct those patients accordingly. I think too, and we'll go into this a little bit more, but as you think about variations, so this is another way to denote if, the doctor charges, let's say, I don't know, $15 a unit for toxin, and maybe the nurse starting off is only at, I don't know, we'll just say $12. So if the patient knows this ahead of time, maybe if you've listed this out on your website or, on your online booking links, things like that, or sorry, more information box for online booking, you could then direct these patients down the particular pathway, that maybe they feel that they want to go. So I think it's really clear and concise when you're entering in that information up front, whether it's pricing differences, it's a duration of the appointment, difference, things like that. And then you then associate it to that particular provider so that the patient knows the pathway that they're going down. So Tiffany, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I think the cool thing about doing it this way is we're so used to, people are going to roll over in their graves when I say this. We're so used to pyramid marketing schemes like, oh, buy it on my link. We're so used to people having a custom link for buying it from them only that this almost mirrors that, but in a way for simplicity. So if I'm a concierge, we have a lot of clinics that are mobile concierge clinics. And if, let's say in this case, Emily, the NP, she covers Abilene, like her area is Abilene, Texas, where Dr. Frank covers all of DFW. To put Emily in the same place as Dr. Frank makes no sense because it's not the same patient, right? They're totally geographically in a different world. So if I'm going to book in Abilene and I don't want to do different clinics, I want them all in the same clinic because I don't want to have to deal with all the multiple clinic thing. They're all the same place. I can separate out by booking link. If you live in Abilene, you're going to get Emily's link. When you click on Emily's link, you're going to get the things that Emily does because Emily doesn't do, let's say, acne and rosacea. She's not dermatology. She's strictly aesthetics. Where Dr. Frank does dermatology work. He looks at skin cancer. He looks at acne, whatever. So her services are different. She's geographically somewhere different. And so I can have an Emily only link so that the patients who are in that area can quickly see that Dr. Frank is not going to drive to Abilene. It ain't going to happen, honey. He's going to be in DFW. He does these things. So I think there's a way in a concierge clinic or a mobile clinic, it's almost critical that you do it this way because otherwise you're going to have someone book for a procedure that can't be done by the person in that market. They're in a whole different market because they're going to be confused. So I think it's really helpful instead of getting that, oh, no provider available button over and over again to say, well, in Abilene, it's just these services. And then the cool thing about that is if you can name them more specifically, like tear troughs, that's a big one, right? Patients want to get their tear troughs injected. Whatever you want to call it, under eye, you can, in the description, make it a lot sexier than tear troughs. But the point being, I know going in that Emily doesn't do it. She might actually do it here on this example, but then the practitioner is not spending 30 minutes explaining to them why she's not comfortable doing tear troughs because it's not on her list. She doesn't do it. I would love for you to drive to Dallas and see Dr. Frank, who's an expert in tear troughs. He has it on his schedule. So I think there's a way to make that, it takes the burden off the practitioner in the room to say why they do or don't do a service. And it also helps too to say our new nurses, our newer injectors only do the main areas, cheeks, lips, whatever that is. Our more advanced providers do these other things. And then the tie back to it to Victoria's point that makes it brilliant is that then your vertical ties to your inventory variation. So now if I go see Dr. Frank, I'm at Dr. Frank's link, I'll book for Dr. Frank, and my invoice says Dr. Frank's Botox at a higher number than if I were to book with Emily, who maybe doesn't do that, or she's a lesser rate for us. So then the patient understands kind of the full cycle of everything. So again, I can track it, right? I can see it on the colors and the different things. I can then track it to my invoices. I can chart it, so it's very clear to me on what I'm selling and how I'm doing it. And then I can now report on all that on BI. So I think that there's just this really great connection. And I'm never an advocate, as you guys have ever heard me talk, I'm never an advocate of promoting a provider over the practice. Like, I don't believe in that at all. The practice is the key. But if you're doing like a by the room, a 1099 contractor model, this is a great option, what we have on the screen. Or if you're doing this like geographical disparity thing, it's a great option as well. But I think you can do it in a way where the practice or Lovely Lines is still the hero of the whole website. But if, live in Abilene, click here. Live in DFW, click here. It's still Lovely Lines, but then I can just kind of segment out who the people are in the different markets. But this one for me it's a great option if you are geographically dependent or people do very different procedures. So there's not like a whole booking the provider and all that stuff going through. Anything you want to add there? Did I beat a dead horse again?
No, I think it's great.
Okay, well, you take this one. They're sick of hearing from me.
You're the fun one. We know that.
I have to tell this story really quick. We had a customer this week say on the phone, he's like, I feel like I'm just like you. I'm like a wild animal, and Victoria's the zookeeper. I'm like, maybe.
That couldn't describe us more perfectly.
Guys, I'm a wild animal, and I have my coffee on the webinar. Okay, go ahead. Tell us how to make it work.
All right, perfect. So, step one is basically, inside of AR, you have your vertical section where you can, get your unique URL that you'll actually then place on any social media website, any platform of your choice. So, step one, locating those forms. And I think then step two is to think about any marketing campaigns that you want to run behind any of this. So if you think about, if you get a new product in, or if you need to use products because they're expiring soon, make sure that your campaign and your booking links are in sync and that they match. Also use consistent verbiage throughout everything. That will also make it a lot easier for the patient when you're using, the perfect palette here and you're using the perfect palette on the booking screen. The patient knows where to go and it makes it a lot easier for them. So I think also too, as we think about websites, so to Tiffany's point earlier, excuse me, when you look at websites, let's say that you have a Cool Sculpting page, link your Cool Sculpting vertical URL there, because most likely if the patient's on that Cool Sculpting page, they probably want to book Cool Sculpting. So I think as you look at your website and you can kind of analyze where your call to action buttons are, make sure that your injectables page has, a link to your wrinkle relaxer or your dermal fillers. Same for body contouring, skincare, if you do consultations, all that. So make sure that it's all in sync and that the buttons match with the correct vertical URL. And then two, as you're doing your newsletter, so if you're doing different promotions every quarter or every month, whatever the case is there, make sure that those call to action buttons inside of that newsletter, if you're talking about body contouring, link your body contouring vertical URL right there. We talk a lot about Linktree as well. So if you guys are not using it, jump on the wagon, it's amazing. So on Instagram, that will allow you to build one link, and then when you click on that link, you'll actually see all of your different URLs. So if you guys go to our Instagram profile, you'll see that we use it and kind of how we have it situated there. But point being is, we talked about it earlier, but make sure that you set up those vertical URLs to your Linktree accordingly. So if you want to build a body contouring button, dermal filler, wrinkle relaxer, then you tie back those specific things. And the good thing for the patient is it actually makes their booking journey a little bit shorter, which they'll be a lot more likely to book because they're not seeing all the other BS that they don't care about. Pardon my French. Tiffany, do you have anything that you want to talk about for recall campaigns?
Yeah, I think two-way texting and recall campaigns kind of feel the same. If someone's two-way texting the clinic and they've booked for the wrong thing, or they're concerned or curious about something, you can always save those little URLs somewhere and put them into your two-way texting. So if you're using our inbox, if you're an AR customer using the inbox, then that's a really simple way to do it. But on recall campaigns, I think a lot about people who are coming back in. So we have the whole thing about patients who have done X and not Y, or patients have not been in 90 days. If they haven't come in for toxin in 90 days, you could actually build a vertical that's specific to that recall campaign for a one-time use if you wanted to. So I could take, if I wanted to do like call it something like the service, I don't know, I wouldn't call it recall toxin, but I'd call it something where I know it's that particular group of people, and I could build a vertical for just that service. So if they wanted to book toxin for their 90 days out, I could make that link. Or even on your surveys, if you're doing the survey that we recommend, like you could do the 90-day recall for the surveys, you could book a link for that saying that 90-day toxin visit, call it that service, make it its own vertical. And then when they go to click that link, they're able to book for toxin specifically, because that's what you're asking them to do. And then if they don't want to do that, obviously they can go to your website and book for more things, but you could really take on a recall campaign. If they're already an existing patient, you don't need to even put new patient in front of them, right? They don't care about that. You would only put the recall campaign the existing patient link. Or if it's a particular service, like let's say recall campaigns being a Sculptra, they've come in for their first visit and not their second and third, right? They have to do, in many cases, 3 in a row for facials. We'll say that for the FDA. FDA, if you're listening, we're compliant here. On their second and third visit, they've not come in. I could do a recall campaign to say, you've not come in for your second service. Please click below to get that book. And I could have on that recall campaign, one installment of Sculptra, whatever you want to call it. And they could book for that thing specifically. Because as long as the service is unique, you can put it on a vertical. So you can build 1,000 verticals if you want, as long as the service has a unique name to it. So it's not hooked to another vertical somewhere else. So again, make that service called that thing, put it on a vertical, and then put that vertical in for the recall campaign. So I think it's the same for the third-party discounts. I mentioned that already with like a Lulu or a gym or a tennis club or whatever that is I'm doing. New patients, founders, members, whatever those things are. I can again make a specific link for just that group of people to say, if you want to take advantage of this, you got to book through this link. It's like your specific, special link that only you get to have, and they feel exclusive about it. So that's a way to make it work. And for those of you who are thinking like websites, this is really, really challenging. It's your little call to action box. If you're using WordPress or using Squarespace or using Wix, you can change those little call to action buttons in a nanosecond. We do it all the time on our sites too. So if you're like, this sounds really, really hard and I don't want to do it, I can promise you that on a website, the least of your worries is a call to action button. That part's really simple, so don't let that part overwhelm you. Like, oh my God, I gotta build all these buttons. That's an easy part. So if you've got a web guy, he can do it or she can do it for you, but if not, if you're doing it yourself, very, very simple.
I did have one more quick thing on that last point. So if you guys potentially, as you think about the third-party companies or partnerships, if you have a little handout, so we do this at AR with little QR codes. So
Genius.
I know. So if you're using that QR code on the little handout, just link back your specific URL for Lululemon, for example. And then that way, the patient gets it, they snap it, it takes them directly to your page, and they book.
A free consultation on that would be genius. Like we should do, Victoria, we gotta put together a kit for these people. I think a free consult on that little QR code, if you're at a, new patients coming in somewhere and you wanna offer a free service, like a free consult, put that on a QR code, get that in, that's genius. You're on it today. Okay, to wrap this up into a pretty bow, I think we go into variations. And so if you guys are not using inventory variations, we have also done, 5 webinars on variations. So you can find lots on this somewhere. But this allows you to change prices, to change combinations, make recipes, to take the Botox unit, the inventory on the shelf, the Restylane box, and make it work in 85 different ways. I can take the same Restylane regular, the blue one, and make it a tear trough price, a lip price. I can dilute it with something else and blend it and make it, a skin booster, whatever it is I want to do with it. But that box of Restylane, that blue box, is always a blue box. But I can make it look and sound different, be different prices, put it in combination with something different. All that I want to do. So again, if it's Dr. Frank or if it's Sally or Jane or whomever doing it for different prices, different areas, I can still track my inventory like I always do, but I can now make my variant look and sound like my service sounds. So if I go to the vertical and book for Dr. Frank for tear troughs, then my invoice says Dr. Frank tear troughs, $1,000, but I'm taking the inventory out as a blue box of Restylane. So the variations allow you to really get wild and crazy if you want to, with names, prices, recipes. You kind of can pick your own poison with that. Pardon the pun there, that's not a good one for filler. But you can make things how you want to make things. But again, it's back to your schema. So if you want to make it price dependent, you might have member toxin. So if you don't want to have to apply a discount every time, you have an everyday discount. like Lulu, Lululemon employee discount is always going to be a discount on certain items. Just make that a variation. Lulu toxin, Lulu filler, Lulu, skin booster, whatever that thing is. So there's no need for a coupon and for percentages off. It's just always going to be $12 a unit. That's a great example of a variation. I don't have to do anything different. I just chart that variant, and then my invoice says, Lululemon employee toxin, or friends and family toxin, $10 a unit. So there's no need to do additional work on discounts and such. It's always just listed as that thing. So it's a nice way to tie it all back together. And here's some examples here too. I think tear troughs are always my go-to, because you're going to charge more for tear troughs than you are for lips. And if you're not, let's have a discussion about that, because the risk is much higher to the practice and it takes more expertise. So you're going to charge more for tear troughs than you are for lips. It's the same box of Restylane, so make that price look different, but again, tie to the same blue box of Restylane for both. And then I think the other here, like a Sculptra BBL, that's a recipe. It's 10 vials, and you're going to have to buy all 10, baby. You get all 10 today, or you're going to get 5 and 5, whatever that is, but you're going to buy that thing, that Sculptra BBL at $4,500 is a recipe. That's another way to say today it's, Sculptra is on promo this month on my vertical. I booked for my July promo. It's for Sculptra BBL. Now my invoice says Sculptra BBL, and I've got the price on there. So it, again, all kind of ties back together where it's all consistent for the patient and their journey. Then they know next time they come in to book for something and it's not on sale, that's why, because I did the BBL last time for Sculptra, not the facial, so it was cheaper because I got so many vials. Then they kind of know why they have a different price for something. I can go on and on, but I'll stop. I'll let you go here.
Okay, perfect. So this is kind of reiterating the last slide a little bit, but we've added in a couple of other examples here. So if you have, nurse versus doctor pricing, that's indicated. If you're doing things by treatment area, or if you want to brand a particular service, so we have the Perfect Pout on here as an example. So the patient comes in, they get the Perfect Pout, and it is always $1,050. So I think too, as you think about some of the service offerings, I actually think variations are a fantastic way to increase revenue in your practice, because you're branding that experience and you're branding that specific service. So I think too, as you think about, marketing campaigns, things like that, just keep in mind, make sure you're using that same consistent naming convention throughout all of your social media platforms, your website, because it should feel very in sync when the patient goes to the website, to your Instagram, your newsletters, things like that. So, yeah.
I think a good example of this, as I'm thinking about hearing you say that, is like the cat eye, which I won't go into whether it's a good idea or not. That's for a different discussion. That's a podcast discussion. But a patient wouldn't book for, I don't know what you use, like straight threads. What are the thread things you use, Victoria? It's not barb, it's the other ones. Like a patient wouldn't book for a kind of thread, such and such gauge of thread. They're going to book for the cat eye, right? They're going to book for the look that they want. I think threads are a great way. Threads kind of tell us how the market should be going, right? We think about threads and we think about what they're going to do, not the actual thread, like a cannula. We don't think about the cannula, we think about the outcome. And so that's a good way for me to sort of think about on my services. If I'm going to have a service like signature, it could be in the category, signature services, right? It could be the category. If I want to go crazy wild, I have the Perfect Pout. I have the Bella Hadid cheek. I've got this, Brad Pitt jawline, whatever you want to name them. Within that thing, if I have, the cat eye, I can put in the description what it is, obviously. But the patient books for cat eye. I know that on my schedule, right? I even maybe have a vertical of signature services, but then on the invoice it again says cat eye, so the patient sees all the way through. I think when we talk about toxin and filler, patients have no idea what they need to get. We have a podcast launching today about temples and chin are doctor nurse areas. Patients don't say I need to have a new chin. They say, gosh, I wish I had, a more defined profile. They don't say I have a peanut head, right? We see them say you have a peanut head. You need to get some Sculptra in those temples. They don't think about that. They just think about something is wrong with their cheeks, and so. To say, facial balancing is a signature service, and some 5 surgeons of filler, that's a Sculptra, that's some toxin, whatever it is, but you get a full facial rejuvenation for X price. Then the patient books for a full face rejuvenation. Their invoice says that on there. They don't know if they did 2 kiss and 1 lift and 6 Voluma and 8 Sculptra. They just see that they got a full face rejuvenation. So it again ties back into everything being a consistent cycle here. And I think it takes away the mistakes patients make, because they know what the outcome is that they want, not how to get there, right? They know they want to have a full lip, but they're not sure about smoker's lines and getting their oral commissure propped up with some filler. They don't know their chin needs to be injected for that whole perfect pout to look correct. So I think it just takes the onus off the patient and lets them tell you what they want their end goal to be. And that service vertical can reflect that, and then the invoice says the same thing. And then now on my tracking, if we go kind of to the next part here, now I get into my tracking of all this, I can see that I'm selling a tremendous amount of perfect pouts. Like that is our hottest seller right now. So perhaps we look at, that's no longer a promo need. We're already selling it, don't put it on promotion, put something else on promotion that's not selling as much. Or look at the description. Why is this one selling like hotcakes and this one isn't? Is it a description issue? Is it a provider issue? What do our NPS scores say? Do we have other feedback, somewhere else about this? Is it the wrong product that we're using? We should be using Versa, not Restylane. So I think it helps you to really delineate out by taking things, making them constant. It's like statistics. I can make things constant. I can start to see where they vary. But you can, I think the upward trend, the growth trends, all this kind of kicks back into making it really simple and easy and making things look and feel the same. To Victoria's point, they're always branded. We love to brand things here, but I think there's a big part of this that, again, the patient wants to buy the look. They don't care about buying the syringe. Although they say they do, they really don't. They care about the outcome, right? We all know that from hearing them talk about it in the consultation. But Victoria, I'll let you go into this in a bit more detail.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point, though. I think that when you're branding that experience or that outcome, the patient is going to be 100 times happier when they leave versus if they just came in to get, I don't know, cheek filler or something random. So I think when you think about everything as a whole, you're really able to, I think, then also capture more revenue up front because you're branding that experience, you're branding the outcome of what the patient is getting done, which in turn, it should positively reflect your revenue. So what else do we have here? So we've got, I think a couple other things to check on too would be looking at your sales data. So trending upward or trending down. That's obviously very important. And then I think also as you look at average transaction size, with variations, you should technically be able to get, more revenue because once again, it's that branded treatment or outcome. And so hopefully you're able to upsell that and charge a little bit more because the patient knows every time I come in and I get, a facelift or a liquid facelift or whatever the case may be, you always get that perfect outcome. And in turn, it will obviously positively reflect transaction size. So a couple other things as well, as you look at just some of the different verticals that you build, if you have one built on new patient services, for example, hopefully that drives more new patients into your practice each month. So I think you can use some of the reports inside of Business Insights to really just benchmark yourself and your business to see, are things going up or are we going down? And if they're going down, you might need to change something. So always be willing to, move quickly and flex if you see that something is potentially not working. So
I think one of the other things too, I think about promotions a lot. We get dinged, admittedly so, because you can't buy things online with AR. Like, we know that that's a thing. We're working through that. Trust me, just take a note here, people. We're working on that right now. But they could book for the promotion. So if I can't call in and buy it, I could still book myself for the promo. I can book that 3 syringe deal that you have on your website. If you don't want to do the signature services, I want to book for my buy 2 get 1 free. That could be the name of the service, so that when the patient comes in, I know going into it that I'm going to have a promotional buy because they're already booked for that promo name. But again, that's where the names have to match, right? The service name has to be the same as the promotion so that I know what I'm working against here. I can put the promotion in the cart at the end, take the money off, the whole shebang that you're used to doing. But I think there's a really nice way where if you can't accomplish the buying ahead process, you can at least have them booked on the schedule knowing that they're going to get that service when they come in. I think that's a big part of it too. And then the other thing I think about a lot with this is estheticians. We spend a lot of time, we belabor the point all the time about procedures with injectables and the outcomes and all these things. But as we found out during COVID, like, estheticians keep the lights on, like the skincare regimens. Our virtual terminal, our virtual telehealth was used primarily for skincare consults for 6 months because people couldn't do anything else. So we've now uncovered this incredible value to the practices around consultations, even the virtual consults. So we didn't even touch virtual today. Virtual is a whole nother animal to do follow-ups. You could have a whole vertical on follow-ups and consults where that 2-week follow-up for toxin or filler is a vertical all on its own. You book it, it's virtual, lights out, be done. It can make it very simple. But I think the esthetician's thinking about the skin quality, like to do a full skincare regimen, like a full skincare workup. that's, maybe an hour. And it needs to talk about the fact that you're going to get your full regimen, all completed and done, and skin typing, all these things you're going to have done. Or if it's, a chemical peel, is it like a red carpet ready? Is it a summer glow? I think there's a way to make it sound as sexy on the esthetician side as it does on the injectable side. So I urge you, if you're not doing that now at the esthetician part of your business, to really focus on making that a big giant part of your verticals as well, because that's how we get new patients in oftentimes. They're less scared to come and get a facial than they are to come and get injected, but they end up coming in, through this highway into the practice. And there's a whole part about estheticians and injectors really working together on that. You could have one service that straddles both esthetician and and injector. One recipe that can cover both things. So don't forget about your SD besties out there, because I think there's a massive potential to make that a big part of the practice from the website, like look and feel, design that we discussed today. So we're at our hour, and we have a few things here just to remember. Keep your links up to date. Don't forget that. If July is over, don't keep those promos up for August, because they're not going to be useful anymore. So change them if you need to. Change the names of things. I think booking is an evolution. Online booking is an evolution. We've got people who still use the word New Talks. New Talks is dead. It's Javo. Move on. You can change it as things change in the industry. Review your business insights all the time. Look at those growth trends, and we'll have some things coming up very soon for you guys to help kind of buy into us giving you consultation advice, trend analysis, feature usage. We'll help a lot with that in the very near future. And then confirm that your staff understand it, that they're going to actually chart the variation and pull that idea through from the vertical to the variant all the way to the invoice and then back again. Because if the staff don't buy into it and they're not using it the way that you've designed it, it's kind of all for naught. So make sure that you've really communicated this idea that this is important for our brand, for our identity as a practice, for our signature services, for our tracking. So please adhere to what we're doing, as a practice. And then we didn't even go into AR today, but if you have questions about how to set up your verticals or your variants, let us know that. There's a lot of, again, YouTubes out there around it. There's some very little short, concise AR, the AR Academy videos are 5-10 minutes each. There's also a lot of more webinar type longer form content available as well. And then some great Learning Lab articles too from our site. You can go to the Learning Lab and get all this in one place. So you can read about it, figure out how to do it. Or, if you need to send us a chat, we'll book time with you to get on a call. You can do some consulting hours and things if you want to do that as well. So lots of choices here to get this working in your practice. Any final thoughts, Victoria, before we hop off?
No, just let us know if you need help, and we appreciate you joining.
Yeah, we will see you guys next week. So let us know if you need us, and we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
See ya.